Hello and welcome to another installment of the First Rate Legacy Podcast. My name, as always, is Blake Miller, and I'm so glad that after one podcast, you've decided to join us again. I don't know if that says more about you or me, but we're happy to have you here as we continue looking at the legacy of First Rate and the LGSE, the Love, Give, Serve, Enjoy. Last week we had a wonderful conversation with our own Rachel Guy about Camp Impact and how she serves and the legacy of service through her commitment to Camp Impact. And today we're moving on to a very correlated core value, and that would be the core value of give. And I have another very special guest with me here today who's laughing. Something about when I say special guest, they start laughing, and it makes me feel a little insecure. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, we have Tricia Duffy here with us to talk about the legacy of giving and give and how that has to do with herself and CCA. So Tricia, thank you for joining us.
Sure, thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Anytime we can hear more about you and your commitment to CCA, it's a privilege for all of us.
It's one of my favorite topics.
And so with that, first I think we just need to let everyone know, what is CCA?
Okay, so CCA is Christian Community Action. It is based out of Lewisville, Texas. It serves a lot of the communities in that area: Lewisville, Flower Mound, Highland Village, Carrollton, Denton. You know, it's really expanded, and sadly, because the need has expanded as well. But my dad started CCA. It's actually my parents. We're two of the 7 founders, 48 years ago.
Just like yesterday.
Right, seems like it. I was 7, yeah. But they were in a Bible study, and they were studying love. And the passages that they were studying talked about love, and they came to the conclusion was love is action. So there was born Christian Community Action. But it kind of fizzled, and my dad really rallied. He didn't have too much to rally my mom, but the other 5 people in this Bible study really rallied them to keep engaged and not let it fizzle out, because he could really see God's calling for him, for sure. And so as was his charm and his style, and he could easily influence most anybody, he rallied them and gathered more volunteers, and it became the largest private nonprofit in North Texas.
Wow.
So and what amazes me is he was 31 years old.
Wow.
When he did that. Yeah. So newly to Texas. We'd only been in Texas, I don't know, maybe 6 months from Michigan. And they wanted to become part of this Bible study because they wanted to become engaged in the community, get to meet some people. And then he had 3 young kids. I was the oldest of 3 at 7 years old. So to take this on at 31 years old, I know, it still amazes me.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It definitely makes me at a ripe old 35 be like, man, I gotta step it up.
Right.
But that's impressive. And I love how they correlated action and love, because
Yes.
a lot of times, I remember in my youth ministry career, I would always emphasize to kids, if agape, God's love, you often think the opposite of it is hate, but in reality it's an absence of love, which is just apathy and no action.
Right.
And
right.
so that's when love is lived out is through action. And so it's awesome to hear that from that Bible study they were able to make that jump and create agape through this organization.
Yeah. And the fact that it has just sustained for 48 years, with just being a local, homegrown charity, and you're competing with a lot of these nationwide charities, the fact that they have been able to maintain for 48 years is pretty astounding.
That is. And to be the staple that it is for the community, that's in the name, is just that much more of a testament the legacy that was created just out of that Bible study. So
Exactly.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
So how have you interacted with CCA? How do you give to CCA?
Well, back in the early days, I didn't have a choice too much because I was drug along as a kid, you know. So many times we were sorting clothes that were donated, you know, so that my mom and aunt could tag the clothes and they would be sold in the resale stores that CCA had. So many memories. And then as I got older, I became one of the employees in the stores and run the cash register and things like that. So. But when I got married and had kids, you know, of course that kind of dwindled a little bit because I was busy working and taking care of family and things. Mm-hmm. But since my dad passed in 2017, I really felt just a calling, just a tug on my spirit to get more involved with CCA because that's his legacy, right? A big part of his legacy. So, and I really felt very removed from what was happening. So I met with the president at the time, and he said, well, why don't you, I want to pair you up with their director of development and work on this year's 5K. I said, okay, great. So did that, and as I was working with her, he said, we've decided to name this after your dad. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, right in the heartstrings. So that was a huge honor. Yeah, but they wanted to, you know, recognize his contribution to serving in the community. And so
everything that he gave.
So ever since then, in 2017, I have been the event chairperson for the race. So including this. So this is considered, we don't count 2020. So this is the 4th annual race coming up this year.
Yeah, a lot of people don't count 2020 for obvious reasons. But yeah, that's exciting. And I know that CCA had to make so many adjustments to how they give and support the community during 2020, and I know you were a big part of that.
It went up, from what they told me, the need that they saw increased by 400%.
Wow.
400%. Last year they distributed $200 million for financial assistance with you know, utility bills, rent, and things like that. They just on average they serve about 600 families a week at their food pantry. So the need has just exponentially gone crazy. Yeah,
it's something that we unfortunately kind of got desensitized to, was how much giving needed to happen, and we saw a lot of these great stories of giving, but we were like, okay, that's taking care of it, but the need to continue to give only grew and grew throughout the year, and we kind of got lost track of it, and it's still not over. We're still having to address so many needs and give so much of our time and energy and resources.
Yeah, because while it's great that CCA has maintained for 48 years, the sad part it needs to.
It's had
you know,
to.
It hasn't run out of business. It still has a huge need to fulfill.
Yeah, it's one of those funny things where you know, the nonprofit business model is to eliminate itself, and unfortunately, it rarely does. And especially after this past year, it's only reinforced how difficult of a climb that is, and how much that requires for us to reach that point. But
definitely.
You still strive to make that happen.
Yeah.
So with this being the 4th anniversary of the Tom Duffy 5K, a big part of that, and what you do, is you recognize that here at First Rate, obviously our 4 core values: love, give, serve, and enjoy. A big part of that is giving, and we're a unique company that allows employees to designate charitable giving.
Yep.
And so you basically have been able to rally a lot of your team members and non-team members throughout First Rate towards giving towards the Tom Duffy Memorial 5K. So first, I guess the big deal is, how easy of a sell was it to get them to give?
It's pretty easy. I mean, And then First Rate has been the presenting sponsor for the last three races. So that's been fantastic. Just to be able to show that with pride on the t-shirts that, the company that I work for is right there on the front of the shirt. But because I've been here since 1999, I have...
Just yesterday.
Right. I've just, developed so many relationships with the people I work with and the people in the company that they know about CCA. And so they know what a close, part of my life it is. So when the time comes around and I reach out and I, of course, give links to the CCA website and things like that, just to give some more information if people are interested. But it's easy. I mean, people are just so generous anyway, and when they see that a charity is so close to your heart, they know the relationship you have with that person. I mean, it's an easy sell.
It's an easy sell.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
It allows people to participate in that passion.
Right.
They can see that connection and passion, and the more people can join into it just through giving, it adds that extra value where it's no longer just not a blank check, but just a standard check and more of a contribution,
Right.
a gift. And that's kind of the key of giving, is it's...
And when I hear that so many employees don't take advantage of that benefit, it just kills me.
It is something we've worked on, but
Yeah.
over the past few years, we went from only having roughly 82% of that benefit being utilized by employees to getting it all the way up to 93%. So
Okay,
we've taken the effort to make sure that First Rate lives up to the give by utilizing this giving opportunity as best we can, and that's been a conscientious effort on our part. And the big part of helping fill that gap that had been created is people like yourself putting out there more personable opportunities.
Yeah.
For people to give, more connection in gifts, and that's the key. And so it's been great to see. And so and one of the things, kind of on that same personable side, is you yourself give, obviously, to CCA, but you give beyond that. I think going back to 2020. We here at First Rate, we kind of had this system where we donated our quote-unquote lunch money once every week to a nonprofit in need, and CCA was one of those receiving charities, and of course you offered up some lunch money then, and plenty others did, but you also participated in quite a few of the other weeks as well in giving. And so what was it about kind of that program that led you to want to give as well, even though it was, because it was beyond just CCA and it was other organizations, other weeks?
I think it's just, feeling the need and knowing how blessed we were at First Rate, because we were still being employed, we were still getting a full salary, and so when First Rate gives us this money over and above what we're getting, it's just like, okay, well, let's give it away. It's because the need was just so great at that time. It's an easy thing to do. Yeah.
And so once you have that giving spirit, and once you inspire others to give, you still easily just kind of fall into the line of giving yourself. And so that's...
Well, I think a lot of people are just have this perception that they live in an affluent community. But until you really open your eyes to what's really around, and you can see need, when you open your eyes to it, you can see it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the taking off the blinders, whether they're self-imposed or just out of unknown ignorance. Removing those blinders to see the need is one of those first key steps to getting you to give.
Right, exactly.
Your time and your money. And as you know, as you are president of an event of that magnitude, it's not just giving of donations that's key. It's also giving up your sweat equity.
Yeah.
If
Oh,
you
yeah.
will. 'Cause,
A lot of time.
how much time and energy does it take for you to give into making sure the 5K goes off as well as
We
it does?
we started our planning in January, February timeframe, you know, and so then it's, you know, of course, getting committee members and things. So in this earlier phase, the race isn't until September 25th. So in the earlier phases, there's not too much, you know, little time every week. But as we get closer to the race, of course, it's going to command more of my time. But again, it's easy. It's an easy thing to do when your heart is committed to an event or an organization. It's an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you've got even that extra layer of legacy into the event, it just
Yes.
gives you that much more motivation.
Right. Carry the Duffy name.
Carry the Duffy name.
Torch to your goal.
You got to torch it. You can't besmirch.
No.
Never besmirch.
No, not at all.
I don't know why I love that word besmirch, because it's actually a very mean, bad word, but it's fun to say. But it's nice that you recognize and take the effort to make sure you don't besmirch.
Yes,
Wow,
yes.
I've said that word way too much recently. That's like awesome in the last podcast. Although some people have said I need to say tomfoolery more, but there's not really any room for it yet.
Oh, you use it when you can.
I use it when I can.
Yeah, I think.
So with that, falling off the edge of my ADD-ness, is there anything else you want to share about the 5K, about CCA, about the legacy
Yeah, I mean,
of your
I'll
dad?
just tell you about some of the programs that CCA
Yeah,
has, right? So
absolutely. Yeah,
they
tell us
have
more.
3 different categories. They're called rescue, relief, and restoration. So under rescue, they have financial assistance there as well as the food pantry. And just something interesting about the food pantry, my dad set up the food pantry in such a way so that it mimics grocery store, because it was very important to him that he protect the dignity of a parent. So that when they come to CCA for food, if a child were to see just food handed to the parent, it does something in the child's eye, you know, about the respect for the
Yeah.
parent, you know. But if the child sees the parent going into what looks like a grocery store, and they get a cart and they go around, and you know what I mean, it maintains that child to parent relationship. So kind of interesting thing
And
about
it shows
food
you,
pantry.
and I think that kind of goes back to that importance of how you give, how you wrap the gift, if you will,
Right, yeah.
as is of monumental importance and value that sometimes we don't even recognize. But it's good to see that.
And plus, the parent is able to pick out the foods that their family likes. Because you could get a box full of food from a charity, and you know your family doesn't eat half of it.
Yeah.
You know, so that was really important to him.
Good. Yeah. That's
Under relief is a Kids Eat Free program where CCA just depends on volunteers, just completely. There's hundreds of volunteers. Volunteers will go out twice a day during the summer for breakfast and lunch, and they go to these apartment complexes, and they bring breakfast and lunch and a bunch of activities and things, and so that in most cases the parents are off at work and the kids are sitting home by themselves. So this gives a time for the kids to come out with an adult sponsored activity, you know, so that's great. They'll do about 50,000 meals this summer.
wow.
Yeah.
And a lot of those meals, a lot of those kids that are receiving the meals and the care, those are ones that have to rely on financial assisted lunches at school, and don't have that
That's exactly
in the
right.
summer.
And so
that's-
they would have been going hungry during the summer. That's right. They also have a back to school program where they serve about 1,100 kids with backpacks and all the school supplies and clothing and things like that. Christmas Cheer, that program serves about 2,200 kids every Christmas, yeah. And they have that Golden Angels program, which is really a great thing to do for senior citizens, because senior citizens sometimes don't get social interaction. So They'll have multiple times a month where these senior citizens will come together. They'll have volunteers even go pick them up and bring them to these social gatherings. And every week they have volunteers that will bring food and hygiene kits to these seniors.
Wow.
So to make sure, yeah. And then one part that's overlooked with seniors is most seniors have a pet.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so, and with the income that the senior has, it's a lot of times there's just not money there to pay for the
pet food
and things like that. So that's what CCA does too. They also get pet food in as donations, that they make sure that the seniors' pets are taken care of, so they don't have to use part of their income for that.
My wife, who works at the Senior Source in Dallas, she knows all too well many of the clients that get referred to Senior Source. A lot of times they're having to get pet food for these elderly because they just don't have it.
And they're just so torn because this is a pet that they have that's with them all day long. It's, you know,
it's their family that's there. That,
right.
You know, and for a lot of the elderly, they might not even have family, and so it literally is all they have.
Yeah, yeah. So CCA takes care of that need. Then under restoration, they have training programs where they will bring in different partners that come in and teach different kind of life skills or training programs so that people can go and get jobs or better jobs. And it's just kind of funny that one of the partners that leads some of those programs is PNC Bank.
Ah.
Yeah, yeah.
A good old partner of First Rate.
Right. And then the other one under restoration is spiritual counseling.
Good.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a very it's a great program. It's just a very deserving organization, and I can see that they are very good with their resources. So they don't have this abundance of staff, you know, where they're just wasting a lot of money, and utilize volunteers.
It's the resources, the gifts are actually making it to the people, not the organization.
Right.
Because I know a lot of times people worry, am I really donating to the need or am I donating to an organization?
Yeah, yeah, but they keep a solid focus on their mission.
Yeah, and that's great to hear, and it's great to see how it is in action. Like going back to the very beginning, how that action takes place all through gifts. So, thank you all for joining us for another rendition of the First Rate Legacy podcast. Tricia, thank you so much for your time, giving us your time, giving us your voice, and sharing how First Rate has been a part of the legacy of giving through CCA, and how your father's legacy carries on through it, and how you're creating that legacy of giving and maintaining that legacy of giving through your work as well.
Thank you.